Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Really excited to be here today. We're going to be talking about Komprise Intelligent Data Management 5.0. This is Darren Cunningham. I run marketing for the company, and I'm here with Paul Chen, our Senior Director of Product Management. Paul, want to
Hi, everyone.
yourself?
Thanks, Darren. As Darren mentioned, I run product management and user experience for Komprise. I am based in our San Jose area, California headquarters. And many of you have recognized me. We've been on calls together. I form the liaison between what customers and prospects need to help them meet their data management challenges, translate those into requirements, and have engineering build that for you.
Awesome. And we're both in our nice Komprise branded shirts. Now we do there's a lot of customers on today's call, and we do a lot of these sessions that we dive deep into areas of the product line, best practices. Today's kind of a bit of that plus. We have many of you joining who are new to Komprise, many partners. So we've opened this up, but we want to give you access to Paul and talk through what we're doing. So just quick logistics overview. Using BrightTalk, you can expand into the full screen. You can use the little settings icon to improve the view. And then there are a couple of attachments. I've got a report and some more information on 5.0 in there, but definitely use the question panel, and we want to make this as interactive as possible. So let's go. The agenda is we want to give you a quick brief introduction to Komprise, because as I said, for some of you, this is a newer area, a newer company. Want to then spend really the bulk of our time introducing what we're calling storage insights and all of what's new in our Komprise 5.0 release. So having said that, let's start with the industry we're in. We just published our third annual State of Unstructured Data Management report, and it was just published at the end of August. And there's lots of information in this report, and I wanted to just highlight a few points, key findings that I think will resonate with many of you on this call because you're living in this world. 73% of the organizations we surveyed are spending over 30% of their IT budget on data storage, right? 32% are managing more than 10 petabytes of data. So more data, more budget, and 85% said that non-IT users should help in managing their data. So more self-service. Let's give them some access and let them do some things, but make sure we're staying in control with strong governance. The top data storage priority this year was actually preparing for AI. So this is of course on everybody's mind. It's coming fast. Cloud cost optimization really rose this year in the priority list, and actually went ahead of cloud migration. So the reason I tell you all of this is because it really leads to this challenge of how to optimize or avoid or reduce costs while managing more data and then dealing with more and more demands for data access and value. And that really kind of sets up what we set out to do when Komprise was founded back a few years ago, 2014. I have that right, Paul? 2016. Sorry, I should get my dates right. And really the goal was to build one platform to manage file and object data, give you visibility in a storage agnostic way across your systems, whether they're in the cloud, on-prem, at the edge, give you visibility, mobility, and value. It's pretty sort of simple summary. Analyze, search, tag, execute across silos, tier, copy, confine, migrate, whatever your data movement needs are, and then ultimately deliver data in native format without sitting in front of the hot data path, and deliver that data in native format to your end users. That's really what we set out to do here at Komprise. Many of you know this, you've been using us for a long time, but for those who are new to Komprise, I just wanted to give that brief overview, and now we'll jump into the new release. Anything you would add there, Paul, before we jump into what's new?
No, I think you covered it adequately. Visibility, mobility, value. Those are the three keywords to remember.
All right, cool. So let's jump into what's new in Komprise Intelligent Data Management 5.0. We're going to spend a lot of time on a new interface today. And really the goal is to unify data and storage management. Give you that one console to be able to spot trends, the visibility across both data and storage metrics. And what's really great, Paul and I have had an opportunity over the last few months to preview this release with a number of our largest, most I'd say, advanced customers who really, helped shape what this interface is delivering and where it will go next. But some of the feedback around being able to see things by department, being able to, get answers to quick questions and then customize this interface, really positive feedback in the preview program. And now customers are already, moving to the 5.0 and actually now 5.1 release. So some of the questions you'll hear, Paul go through: which shares have the most amount of cold data? Which shares have the highest recent growth in new data? You'll see how quickly you can get insights and answers to those questions with this new interface. And then if those aren't the questions, or are there other questions you want answered, you can very easily customize your interface. There is a panel that allows you to bring in over 25 different columns and then determine where you want those columns to be for you with the Storage Insights interface. And as well, you can edit and modify your settings to change the percent growth, to change how you're looking at cold data. Really this empowerment console to give you that view across both data and storage is really what this new interface is all about. And you're going to see that in today's demo, which we're going to spend most of our time going through. And of course, what we always talk about Komprise is visibility is great, but what's really most important is then being able to take the right action, right? The right investments, the right data movement strategy. What is it you want to do now that you have visibility? And what we're working on expanding is the kinds of ability to take from insight to action within this console, as well as within the plan area of Komprise, as well as in deep analytics. And you'll see that in today's demonstrations. So there are many other updates in the 5.0 release. In addition to the Storage Insights, this new data stores interface you're going to see. And this expands across the data migration area of the product line. There's new reports that you're going to see in the demonstration. And we're always adding new support for some of our alliance partners. We've added new support for Azure Lifecycle Management with this release. Performance is always top of mind, right? Making sure you're getting high performance within the interface and from an end user perspective. So you're going to see lots of these in today's demonstration. And like I said, so far the feedback has been very positive, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear from customers who are now using 5.0 or planning to. Being able to see storage by department, that was one of my favorites. That will be huge. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Paul, to switch gears and go from high-level overview into let's show it. Let's talk about what this looks like. And I want to encourage you all to use the question panel. We have already some questions come in, but let's hand it over to you, Paul.
Very good. Thank you, Darren. I'm sharing my screen. Is that coming through clearly?
Yep, looks great.
Terrific. Thanks. As Darren mentioned, we're going to be looking at Komprise Intelligent Data Management version 5.0 today. So clearly this is a major version upgrade. There are a lot of features in it, as Darren mentioned. One thing that I wanted to show you, though, is to compare it with what you're used to, say, in the 4.x line. So I've got a couple demos here. This particular demo is on 4.10, 4.10 being the last release in the 4.x line. I wanted to show you how we're improving in 5.0 against, say, 4.x. And it all starts with the login screen. Now, we're always continuously improving our performance, as Darren mentioned. There were some issues with some of our customers on the login screen, just trying to get into Komprise. So we did some performance optimizations there. And while we were there, we took the opportunity to upgrade even the login screen. So there's a new look and feel on the version 5.0 login screen. So right away, when you upgrade to 5.0, you will notice a change. And this is sort of a bellwether to a notification that things are different and you're going to have an improved experience. But the main thing that we're going to focus on today is that new data stores tab. Of course, if you're on the 4.x line, this is the interface that you're used to. And you typically use, of course, the shares tab to point Komprise to your storage. And of course, there's a wizard to add whatever storage you need us to look at. And you fill out the wizard. And then you get an interface here where you can see your file servers in this left pane. If you click into a particular file server, you can see details about the shares on that particular file server. You have some file server information at the top. You can see some information about those shares, the protocols, whether or not Komprise is analyzed. If so, when was the last time? how much data is on that share, and if you are archiving using our product, how much is already been archived to the tier or tiered off to the target. But you'll notice there's only a few columns of information here. It's a little bit bare. I think most of you are using the Shares tab mostly to point Komprise to your storage, and then quickly you're moving to other tabs like Plan or Migrate, where you can actually perform the tasks that you need to do. So keep in mind, the Shares tab, of course, is very file-centric. The product has been very oriented toward files. We have another version that does support objects, and we will be merging those in the near future. But right now, even the name of the tab is very file-centric. So keeping that in mind, let's look at 5.0. Again, a new experience from the get-go, from the login, and a new experience even as you log in. Now, of course, the plan page we haven't touched. It's the same that you're used to. But notice the treatment of the application header bar is much lighter. It's no longer this dark, heavy thing that distracts you from the content. It's lighter. It's still obviously visible. You can tell which tab you're on, but now you can focus better on the content. This tab is the data source tab. You'll notice the shares tab has been replaced, and we're giving it the name data stores on purpose. It's a very conscious decision. Data stores now is where you'll be managing all your data storage that you want Komprise to manage, both file and object. So it's the first step toward a single pane of glass of Komprise managing all your unstructured data, whether it's file or object. You'll notice, of course, the layout is similar. You've got a left pane with your file servers. You've got a main pane with your file servers and shares, and then you've got columns of information. So it's the same layout that you're used to, but there are a lot of new bells and whistles and features to give you what Darren mentioned, what we're calling storage insights. We're giving you insights now into your storage. So instead of just coming to data stores and using the wizard to add your storage and then exiting and then going somewhere else, we're going to give you the opportunity to learn more about your storage here. Again, visibility is key. The more you can understand your storage, then the better you can take action and perform the mobility and get the value. So right off the bat, you see the user interface is much wider. We're making full use of the screen. We realize that a lot of our end users have very large monitors now, multiple monitors, and we're able to take advantage of the full browser width. It's a fully responsive user interface. And then you'll see for each particular file server, you'll see the shares underneath. And we do have columns of information about each share. So again, we have a data bar showing you how much data is on a particular share, how much has been tiered if you're using the plan feature to tier the data, and we'll actually show you the free space now available as well. So there's already more information in the data bar. You can still see the type. It's SMB. For analysis, we'll show you the status of Komprise analysis. And again, we'll show you the status of the last analysis that we had performed. Or if it's in progress, we'll show you that as well. But now you'll start to see newer columns here. And I will focus on some of these new columns: cold, free, growth, explain them. But one thing I want to bring up right away is that this entire interface is customizable. So you'll see you have a button here called columns. We have now over 25 columns of information that are available to you. And I'm going to bring in some of them. It's a simple drag and drop interface. We adopted this from Microsoft. They are the leaders, of course, in user interface design, or at least the ones that most people are familiar with. If you want a new column like department, you just drag it over. You can put it in any order that you like. I'm going to put it right after the name. Another couple columns that I do want to focus on: modified data. I'll put that in. New data. Let's focus on that as well. So you see you have all these columns. There are information bubbles. So if this will be new to a lot of you, you can find out what these columns do. But then if you don't, once you understand them, you won't have to use that anymore. The blue gear indicates that these are customizable columns. And you'll see right here on the right side, there are settings. And as I go through some of these new columns, I'll explain how you do the settings. Once you save the configuration, it is saved per user. So each one of your end users can customize the columns that he or she would like to see. It's saved each time he or she logs in. That's the interface. Of course, at different phases of doing work with Komprise, different columns may become of interest. So again, it's very easy to customize what you want to see, what you need to see, and in what order. Now, of course, if you add a lot of columns, that's totally up to you. You may need to scroll to the right. That's the bane of any UI existence. However, we have helped you out. If you are comfortable navigating in the main pane, it does echo a lot of the left pane. You can collapse this left pane and get much more real estate for all your columns. So that's another option available to you. Let's talk about some of these new columns. Free percent, that's fairly intuitively obvious. We are measuring how much is free on any particular file server, cluster, even down to the share level. Of course, they may share the free space. You can filter and view just particular shares. So if you're interested in shares that have less than, say, 25% free space, you can now filter that column and just look at the storage, which is getting critical in terms of space. So this can help you very quickly get some visibility across all your different storage on how you're doing on free space. You don't have to log into your Isilon console. You don't have to log into your NetApp console. You don't have to look at your Windows server separately. It's all here available to you. Cold percent. This is something that Darren mentioned. This is a measure of how cold the data is across your storage. Now, what's the definition of cold? Well, that is completely up to you. Again, if we look at the columns, there is a setting here, and it'll take you right to the setting. You recognize our data age segments here. This is our familiar data donut, red being the hottest data, and moving through the cold in the lighter blue, the darker blue. These date ranges, of course, are completely customizable by you, the customer. So you can decide what are the appropriate age buckets to set. And then the cold data is a simple binary choice, saying that, for example, right now, any data that hasn't been accessed in a year or more, I'll consider cold. And that's what the user interface is using to show you what percentage of data is cold across your storage. If you want to change that particular setting, you can do it. You click this link, it takes you to the system settings page. Under analysis, there is a setting for cold data. Right now it's set to last accessed more than a year ago. If you want to change that, let's be very aggressive. Let's say cold data is data that hasn't been accessed in 6 months. Or you could go the other way and say 2 years or more. It's entirely up to you. I'll set it to 2 year. Then when I go back to data stores, now we'll see much less percentage of cold data. Remember, it was in the 40s, 50% when I was looking at 1 year old data. Now, if we say our threshold is 2 years or more, it's dropped, but very easily I can see across my storage, even down to the share level, what's the percentage of cold data. Now, the numbers here are all approximately similar. This, of course, is a canned demo. I don't have access to multi-petabytes of real data. So although this is a real product demonstration, we have a software data emulator behind the scenes that's feeding the product all these numbers. So right now we're just showing about 25% cold across the storage. And again, you can filter here as well. If you're interested in shares that have more than 23% cold data, you can do that filtering.
Hey, Paul. I'm starting to get a few questions coming in, and just want to remind people they can use the panel to ask questions. Good if I throw a few at you, or do you want to keep going and then I'll hit you after show a little more?
No, let's take them live while they're relevant.
All right. Well, one question is about you're on the filtering side. So the question is, can I filter the view to say just my Isilons or just my cloud storage?
Absolutely. That is a great question. The use case that we envision is that IT teams often are subdivided into sort of specialties. You may have an IT admin who's specifically working on all the Isilons because, of course, there are intricacies for that particular platform. Someone else who's taking care of all the NetApps, or even further, certain shares across different file servers. This filter button is very powerful. This display by default will show you all your file servers, all your shares, but by filtering, you have a number of different ways to slice and dice to view the data. So in this particular case, the question is, can I view just my Isilons, or can I view just my NetApps? And you can do that very easily here. This list will be populated dynamically based on the storage that you have. So we won't show you anything that you don't have, but we know everything that you do have, and then you can pick and choose the ones that you want to display. So if we focus only on the NetApps, now the view is filtered down to just the NetApp 8 and the NetApp 9s. Anything that I had open will stay open, so I don't lose that. And of course, I can open other file servers to see what shares are there.
Another one, just from me, because I know as you start to drill down, I think about the Directory Explorer in Deep Analytics. I wonder if you can maybe talk about that and then talk about how that will show up here.
Absolutely, Darren. That's a great question. Version 5.0 introduces this new interface where you can easily drill down. And one point I'll mention that's related to what you said, we now show clusters as first-class entities in our storage hierarchy. In the 4.x, even the 3.x line of the product, we knew about clusters. You would enter cluster info, but we didn't show them. And we had a lot of customers come back and say, actually my SVMs for NetApp are organized by cluster, and we do name our clusters so I can easily find them. Your current user interface just shows me all my SVMs in a flat view. Can you show me my clusters? So you'll notice now we've got clusters as entities in the storage. The next obvious question is, well, now that I'm in the share, can I drill down further and start looking at top-level directories or even subdirectories? That is coming. So Darren, you're touching on a roadmap item, but we have already built that capability, and I think some of you are already using it on our deep analytics capability. So just as a quick preview or quick review, deep analytics is the feature in the product that allows you to search with fine-grained detail using metadata as the query filters to find any data across all your data silos. And you basically do that using filters. So you can filter on where the data is, data stores. You can filter on what path the data lies. You can even filter on file name, partial starts with, ends with. You can filter on dates. You can filter on extensions, size, group, etc. When you are filtering by where to search, you can say, well, I want to search anywhere in Atlanta site, or actually I want to just search within this filer, or actually cluster. Now I get down to the share. With deep analytics, even before 5.0, you can now navigate down to directories. So in this share, we've got all these top-level directories, and I want to navigate even further. You'll see we're building out the breadcrumbs at top, so you can quickly navigate back if you picked the wrong directory. If you want to look at particular directories to search in, you select the directories, and now Deep Analytics will limit its search to just those directories. But I wanted to just show you this because you can see how we are navigating down through levels of subdirectories. This interface we've already built for Deep Analytics. We're going to be adding it to data stores. In fact, it's already in implementation. I don't have an ETA yet, but we are in development for increasing the capability already of this screen to go further down from shares into directories and subdirectories.
Awesome.
Good question,
A
Darren.
lot of questions that have just poured in here. So let me just hit you with a few. So one is, can you see how many or how often files are accessed through the Komprise grid? Parentheses, files moved with the plan and accessed through a symlink with the new interface.
That is a very common question. Komprise, of course, helps you mobilize your data to the right places. Tiering is one of them. And for those of you who are newer to Komprise, we use a technology we call Transparent Move Technology, TMT. So when you set an age policy on the Plan tab, you'll say, I want to archive data that hasn't been accessed in more than 6 months. We will archive that data. And you'll see in the data donut, you've got hot data, warmer data. And if it's 6 months or older, then we're archiving that data. And you can see the purple bars showing how much we've moved. When we archive the data, we archive it to your target secondary storage, and we leave behind a symbolic link on the source share. That way, it's transparent access for your users and your applications. They do not have to change their behavior. They know exactly where their files were. Applications have links to specific files and directories. Those still work. Those still exist. The users navigate to their source shares. They see a link instead of their file, but it's the same name, so they may not even realize it's a link. When they double click it, the file is accessed through Komprise. So we're never in the hot data path. Any file that remains on the source goes through the file system. We're not in the hot data path. But data that we've archived, Komprise will retrieve from the target secondary storage and serve it back to the end user. So the question is, can Komprise let me know how many times people are accessing those Komprise links? This is very useful information because sometimes you want to be very aggressive on your plan. You're saying 6-month data. Sometimes data that's even a year old may still need to be accessed, especially thinking about annual reports. They need to gather up data that's a year old and look at it, maybe start editing some cumulative reports and things like that. So archiving every 6 months, some people may still need to access that cold data. The question is always, how much data is being accessed? How often, by whom, from which shares? These are great questions. Multiple customers have asked for this. We are working on a solution to provide that access information. We do log it today, but not yet to the granularity to give you those kind of the ability to slice and dice in reports of who, when, which share, how big were the files, exactly which files. All of that we're working on. And we can see this is very useful information. You can then tune your plans. If you find out maybe 10% of the data you've archived is being accessed, you might think maybe I need to back off and go to a year because that's kind of a high access rate. Generally, we see less than 2% of cold data being accessed, and that's when you can feel comfortable that your plan policy is probably well tuned.
Well, speaking of cold data, question or comment, our cold data can change from share to share. We could use the ability to set cold by filer and or by share.
Great point.
Comment.
Thanks for that. It's already in our list of enhancements to make. We originally designed this, as you noticed, to be a global setting, actually. So we do realize that in certain cases, the engineering share might have data that ages a little more slowly because you want to keep build information around. But say the marketing share, marketing collateral changes quickly as new features and new releases come out. So definitely the cold data threshold can be different. And that is another enhancement that we'll be working on. Again, I can't give you a date, but it's absolutely on our list.
So one area when we did a lot of these previews, we spent some time on getting feedback also on future use cases, is the alerts thresholds. Can you talk about how to set those and maybe some possible ways that people could get alerted or notified in the future?
Absolutely. So let me touch on that question first by introducing some of these new columns. So I have 3 other columns here labeled growth %, modified %, and new %. And just by way of explanation, you also have a companion column available for each. If you're interested in the absolute amount of growth and modified and new, you could select those columns as well or instead of. What the growth column is measuring is how much any particular piece of storage, for example, any particular share, has grown over a given time period. So then the question is, well, what is that time period? You can configure that. So for growth, we're looking at the change in the amount of data. It can be positive, actually could be negative. Sometimes people are able to delete a lot of data and they can see some negative growth, which makes IT and storage admins pretty happy. You get to configure what's the time frame over which Komprise will measure that growth rate. So over the last month, over the last quarter, over the last half year, and even longer trends, so you can spot how you're doing on your storage overall. Now, some of you who are using Komprise for years know that we do analyze your storage on a weekly basis. Basically, every share, once it's done analysis, it will sleep for about a week and then wake up and do another analysis. Over time, of course, shares of different sizes will start and stop their analyses at different times. So it's kind of a rolling update of all your storage that minimizes the impact on your storage for your end users, but it keeps our data essentially fairly fresh. So even though you may be measuring the growth over the last month, we're always using the most recent analysis data that we've got from all your shares. So you can measure over the last time frame, and then the threshold, which Darren was asking about, or which the question came in about, you can set thresholds that say, oh, if more than 10%, if there's more than 10% growth on these particular data stores, then I want an alert, and we'll show you an icon. Similarly, you can set an alternative maximum threshold. So you can say, if the data grows by more than 500 gig, then show me that alert. So now on the growth, you'll see right now in the simulator, all the growth is pretty small, less than 2%. If I wanted, I could filter to just the storage that is going to be greater than my configured threshold, which is 10%. It's echoed here. I can apply, and right now, whew, great. None of my storage is growing more than 10%. So that's a nice thing to know. The same thresholding capability exists on these other columns. So now I've explained growth, probably modified and new, become quite clear, more self-explanatory. Modified, Komprise will show you the amount of data in here, percent, that has been modified on a particular piece of storage over, again, another time frame. So here's the modified. You can have a different time frame. You may want this to be as short as possible. And you may want a higher threshold, let's say 50%, and maybe a larger absolute threshold, 2.5 gig. This can be a very interesting alert for you. If, say, more than 50% of a share has been modified, this is fairly abnormal. You don't expect that high of a change rate in normal steady state file usage. It could be an indication that something is trying to take over your share and has encrypted more than half of it. And so again, filtering on those alerts can be very interesting. Now, again, for the purposes of this demo, we've set the modified percentage very, very high on all the shares just to show. But in here in particular, this percentage of this share is over 99%. And if I open up, basically every share is right now at some 99%, and it's over my 50% threshold. So I'll see a lot of alerts here, and I'll be very nervous that something is taking over my entire data storage estate and is encrypting everything.
Awesome. A couple others. I know you want to show reports. Sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead. But
no, that's okay.
Before you do that, there's a couple questions. Do you want to show something else first on new percent?
I'll just say the last thing about new. New, it works just the same as growth and modified, except instead of negative growth, this is really just new data that will show you over the same time frame. And again, you can alert as well.
So the question here is, I can get a file count on share. Can I find all the directories with more than 800,000 files? Can I get the total count of folders and depth of the folder structure on a share?
Those are all good questions, and they are related to the directory hierarchy. So we're working on those kinds of visibility, that kind of storage insight when we roll in the Directory Explorer capability to this interface. So we'll have information like for any particular directory that I navigate to, how much data is in that directory itself, and then as well as how much data is in the entire subtree that this directory is the root of. So I'll have those kinds of information in the roll-ups. I can hear that it's very useful. What we're hearing from certain customers is that they want to take action at the directory level. And so I'm sort of leading into yet another roadmap related item. When we roll in the Directory Explorer, it will have roll-up information. So you're getting even more storage insights. And then right from this page, instead of having to navigate to plan, instead of having to navigate to migrate, or even to navigate to recall, in the actions menu for that directory or share or file server, you'll be able to take those kinds of mobility actions. So right now, all the actions are about the storage, about the actual data entity, but you'll find a new category of actions for put this directory in a plan. This directory represents a project. I know it finished last month. Let's just archive the whole thing, get it off the primary storage, get it to secondary storage. So right from this interface, as you learn about things, you can take action. Another use case is, we need to migrate this share. For example, it's assume the company bought this new company called Exacom, and they have an old Linux server. We want to migrate all their data off this old server, and we're going to migrate it onto our engineering server. So right from here, instead of having to go set up a migration, you would be able to say, migrate this share from A to B, and we'll bring you the wizard right here. So actions would allow you to take those actions and create mobility policies directly on the storage that you get insights on here.
And a question about actions, Paul. Can I operate on more than one share at a time, like bulk actions?
Absolutely. We had some bulk actions even in the 3.x and 4.x lines, but we've improved it even further here. So essentially, if I want to act on a bunch of data at a time, I can use a combination of filter and these checkboxes. So of course, there's a master checkbox that will select everything in my storage. Probably not something you would do as a real use case, but you might say, find me all the shares that are disabled. And I actually don't know if I have any because I've enabled everything for this demo. but you can use that filter to say, show me the things that are move sources and show me things that are migrating data. So let's look at the shares that are actually taking part in transfers. And I can see in this transfers column that this share is doing a planned move, and I can see how much data was moved in the last transfer. I think down here, probably there's a migration going on. In fact, it's active, it's blue. We can see how much data is currently being archived or migrated. Now, for example, within this entire Windows file server or across all these file servers, I can pick multiple file servers. It will pick everything underneath them in the shares as well. So I'm picking multiple items. I can now take multiple actions at once. Now, there are different types of storage entities here. It's heterogeneous. We want to limit you to taking actions on a homogeneous set of things. So we recognize that out of all your selections, some of which are file servers and some are shares. So if you say, I want actually just to take action on the shares, we'll bring up the shares bulk action menu. And now you can take basically one button to do all of these. Now, suppose you want to pause all these shares because for some reason you're going to do maintenance on all these servers and you want to pause all of their activities. So we'll give you a confirmation. These shares are going to be paused. Are you sure you want to do that? You can export this. So you have a record of the things that were running before you pause them. You can confirm and say, yes, pause them. Or you can say, no, actually, I don't want to do this. And if you do the pause, we'll take the action on those shares. You can export another report that says, here are the shares and here's the state of them. In this case, 5 successfully paused. If there were any errors, you would see however many were successful, how many failed, and the export will give you details on those. So in a very interesting and easy manner, you can now take bulk action at whatever level you like at a very quick way.
Awesome. So I know there's also a number of updates in the area of migration. We're going to do a deeper dive session on that, but it may be good just to show a few things there. But before you jump out of data stores, can you talk about departments? Because we did hear that was really interesting to customers, being able to segment by department. How does that work? How easy is that to customize?
Absolutely. This is yet another new feature that we've introduced with data stores. It is a customizable label that you can assign to your storage. And if you assign it, excuse me, at a high level, it gets inherited by all your children. So obviously, this will be the first time you're using this feature within Komprise. So you might know that this isolon is owned completely by IT. You can set its department when you edit the cluster. And you can pick whatever department you would like. And this way it'll flow down to all the children. You can quickly set departments throughout the storage. But at a lower level, you can override. So for example, this share says sales, but actually, if it's not really sales, I can change its department to whatever it happens to be. Actually, it's a marketing share, and then it'll be updated to be marketing. You may be asking, where do these labels come from? There is, of course, a system setting for that. You can simply go to system settings. It's a global set of departments. So once you do the global settings, you'll see this new department value. We will pre-populate with 3 marketing, finance, and I think operations. Just to get you started, you can delete any of the ones that are there. You can rename them and you can add new ones here if you like. So if you have a group called sales systems, now this is a new label that's available to you. So when you go back to data stores, you could say, well, actually that share that I was looking at, or it was under IT sales. The one I was marketing is actually sales systems. So I can go and now pick the sales systems label. Once you've set labels on your storage, then it becomes very easy to view storage by particular groups, particular departments. So actually operations is limited to just one file server, a couple shares. And if I were to pick a different group, say the product group, I can find out that storage as well. So in this case, departmental ITs can very quickly narrow in on just the storage that they have to manage. It limits their view. And by the way, we now have a customizable report of your data stores. So when you click the export button, you'll get a CSV of just the view that you're looking at, just the filters. So if you had 4,000 shares of product, only those 4,000 shares would show up in that report. Similarly, if you were looking at multiple different types of filtering, whatever kind of filtering you do at this level, either by shares and storage and plans, whether across providers, whether on status, has warnings, has errors, you may want to print those out, etc. Whatever you've set to filter the view, when you download the report, it will echo that specific view.
And everything you've been showing on the top left,
go ahead, Darren.
Everything you've been showing is by the Atlanta site. So can you just quickly touch on the concept of multi-site for folks who might not be as familiar with Komprise?
Certainly. The concept of multi-site was introduced in Komprise 4.0. So that was a major version of release that included this new capability. You can create whatever sites you like under the System tab, System Sites. You can manage your sites. You can add sites very simply. And basically, a site is conceptually where you've got different storage located. Now, we've listed different cities here. Of course, they can even be different data centers within the same city. But clearly, the idea is that things are separated by network proximity. So wherever you've got your storage, you need to install observers that are in close network proximity. You manage those sites separately. And then when you go into different parts of the product, so for example, data stores, you can view the storage again by site. So Phoenix has only got one file server right now. Boston has a few. We typically do all our demos in Atlanta, so Atlanta is always more populated. But essentially, you get views per site. Again, different sites usually have different IT professionals working on them, so they get the views tailored for their needs.
All right. So in the time we have, do you want to show some of the migration updates, or do you want to jump right into reports, or do you want to hit both? Also, there was a question about the new recall tab. I don't know if there are any new functionality worth mentioning there. That was a question. Things like being able to select by target or using deep analytics queries to perform a recall.
So just quickly, in the old interface on the shares tab, recalls was a sub-tab of shares. We thought that didn't make sense now with the new data stores tab. So recall is the same recall tab we had before. It's just promoted up to the main menu bar. So actually, we have a lot of customers who do need to recall data. It's much more easy to find this capability. This page is the same as it was. We don't yet have any new capability here, but we have a lot planned. We need to update this user interface. We need to make it more user-friendly and new capabilities, such as recalling specific files instead of having to recall either an entire share or directory. So that's coming. Thank you for that. I will quickly touch on use cases on migration and show you reports, but I think we'll need to do follow-on webinars on that. In migration, we have the ability now to do new types of migrations, new use cases. So the standard migration is essentially make the destination look like the source. I need to get all the data off the source. So again, the Exacom subsidiary that this company bought, we're going to get all their data off their server and we're going to put it on the engineering share. Let's put it in the New York City because it happens to be Atlanta based. Now you see this new screen in the add migration. We're making it explicit now that you could, by default, choose a standard migration, make the destination an exact copy of the source. And that's the way all our migrations have always run. We now have this other option, which will handle new use cases like the consolidation migration use case and the warm cutover. So I'm going to leave it at that. There's a lot to say about these. I'm looking forward to the next webinar where we can explain these new use cases. I'm sure these are going to be interesting to you. So that's a teaser.
And then also finally, there's a lot of additional migration functionality coming in the next few releases. So exciting area of innovation.
Exactly. Settings is something that's sort of lesser, it's a lower level of enhancement, but there's definitely usability here. It allows you to set new things per migration instead of having to do it at the global level. So a lot to say about migration, and performance too is buried in there. Lastly, in the latter releases of the 4.x line, we introduced this new reports tab. So again, visibility about the data that you've got. You'll see there are a number of reports here. Showback is an interesting report. This allows you to report how much capacity your storage is using. And if you've divided these up by group owners, say you know that this VNX is owned by operations, you can quickly generate a report, a nice PDF that will show those owners. You can hand them that PDF. that gives them a report of how much data they're using. And if they are tiering with Komprise, how much they're saving. So good job here. They are tiering. You can see how much they've tiered, how much they're saving per year. And this will give them a nice call to action if they haven't already tiered. But I do want to mention this other report, which is brand new in 5.0, called potential duplicates. A lot of customers have come to us and said, I think I have a potential duplicate problem. I think my end users are copying data around, and not only within file servers, they're copying them across my data estate. My storage can't dedupe those when it's copied from Windows and put on this other share over there. But I have no idea how much data I've got that are potential duplicates. So now we're going to help you find that information. We're going to give you visibility. You can select exactly where you're looking for duplicates. It could be your entire site. It could be across, say, just the net apps. So you can choose where to find duplicates, and then you can choose the criteria that Komprise will use to try to find duplicates. Now, of course, duplicate files have to have the same size. So by default, we'll always look at files that are the same size. But then you can opt. Should they match file names? Well, sometimes not. If they're copied across file systems, sometimes there's a parentheses 1 parentheses that's added. So the file name isn't exactly the same, but generally the extension is the same. Create times might not match. Maybe it is maintained when I copy it across filers. So let's try that too. And last modify time. So the more criteria the pick, the better our matching will be. You can imagine essentially an n-squared algorithm. So it may take some time, but you can generate a high-level PDF that gives you a summary of the potential duplicates. And we're calling them potential because out of these 2 million files that are duplicates, obviously they don't all match exactly themselves. They're different sets of duplicates. And we'll show you in this report, there's 2.7 million files. It's 5% of all your files. So that gives you a very quick thumbnail of, okay, how big is my problem? Actually, it's 4 petabytes. So, it's a significant enough problem that I should probably do something about it. That will be your next question. So how do I take action on these? Well, we'll show you different sets. And in the PDF, we do give you a summary of up to 20 sets. And what we're saying is you asked us to match files by extension and last modified in size. So there are 15 copies of files that end in .zip. Their size is exactly 12.32 terabytes, and they're consuming 184 terabytes. So this gives you a breakdown of those different sets. If you generate the CSV report option here, you can find out exactly where those sets are and where each of those copies of the files are. And then what we do next is go into deep analytics and just search for that set. You can search by file name and extension, etc. The same criteria. These are basically deep analytics criteria. Find that data, generate the CSV, hand it to the owners and say, here's potential duplicates. These files all look the same. Can you tell me, is there an authoritative copy or copies that we should save? Are there ones we can delete? Are there ones we can archive? And then you can take action on what you've just learned. So that's a very high level, quick overview of this new report. We think it'll be very useful to you. So let us know.
Yeah, I think this is an exciting area of the product line. So having this one place to get these reports. Just there was a question about licensing. The potential duplicates report does require deep analytics. So definitely, reach out to your account team and talk to them about, where you are with Komprise. We do have some customers that are on migration only, and a lot of what you showed today is around data management and deep analytics, which is more of a full platform license. So let's talk about next steps. A couple quick questions. I know we're kind of at the edge of our time here. As I mentioned, definitely reach out to your account team to discuss what's new. There's new guides available on the doc site. There's content available on the Komprise marketing website. And if you're newer to Komprise, reach out to us, go to the website, schedule a demo. We'd love to take you through some of this and explain some of these details. A couple of quick questions, Paul, before we wrap. One is on upgrades. How hard is the upgrade? And then also 5.1, or sort of a lot of customers don't go to a .0. What can you say about, the 5.1 release?
Great questions. Larger enterprises are shy of a .0 release. From our perspective, a .0 release is the same as, or is managed the same way we handle every other release. It goes through the same regression cycles. So it's as tested as any other release. The upgrade is as straightforward. Contact your account team or your customer success representative. They can line up the upgrade for you. In fact, we've already had more than 24 customers upgrade. So they're happily on using the new interface. 5.1 I'll tell you, is right around the corner. It's a matter of a couple days away before we make the announcement. It'll be generally available. So if you prefer to take a little more conservative approach, 5.1 has only a few new features. So again, very light on features. Any issues that we've discovered, again, there's always enhancements and bug fixes in each release. So that is another option for you. If you don't prefer to take the .0 release, you can take the .1 release, which is coming again in a matter of days.
So I'll give you one common question was on the user interface, the sort of lighter screen, which can make it hard to find text buttons and checkboxes. Any help Komprise can provide on making things easier to find and select? I think they're asking for a dark mode, which marketers always like. This is a Windows 10 issue primarily. So any feedback or you've heard on sort of that lighter UI of the data stores tab?
Actually, not yet. Our checkboxes on the user interface here are the same that we use throughout the product. It's used on the plan tab. It's used in deep analytics. Again, our user interface team our user experience team makes sure that even when we introduce new features, we're consistent across the UI. So all of these capabilities are essentially the same as they were before. So it's always good feedback to hear. We do have a couple user interface ideas that we're looking at. Dark mode is also in our quiver of things that we want to work on. We know a lot of developers like to use dark mode, and of course, IT professionals are at heart developers as well. So that is something that is of interest to us.
Here's one, hardball. Any future plans to expand Komprise solution to primary / block-based storage? Come on, Paul.
Well, I was at an Amazon webinar once with a product manager and product manager. It was very interesting to hear when they got requests for enhancements, even in Amazon, multi-billion-dollar company, they apparently don't have enough resources to do everything they want. And his standard answer was, in the fullness of time, we will be able to achieve that kind of capability. So I was heartened by the fact that even Amazon has to prioritize what they work on. Unfortunately, we are still not as big as Amazon, but we're getting there. But we do have to prioritize things. Block is something that is a little further out on the roadmap, I would have to say. It depends on customer demand, of course. Business case comes up, it's something we would definitely consider.
And you did hint strongly at the file and object. We have cloud data management today in a separate interface, and bringing that together, I think, will be huge. And I think data stores is the first step towards that, right?
Exactly. I didn't have time to get into that, but in the user interface, we already divide up the sections of the page into on-premises storage versus cloud storage, because in a lot of organizations, it's different people who operate on the cloud versus the on-prem storage. So they can quickly filter their view to just the storage that they're operating on. And we do show object storage now in the same view. This data storage tab is meant to handle all your storage, whether file or object. And we're making strides toward the data, unstructured data management as well for both.
And Dave in Kentucky gave a shout out to Mount Diablo High School in Concord. Go Red Devils. I don't know what that means, but maybe that's for you.
Go Red Devils.
All right, cool. I think we hit all of our questions. Thanks for taking us through that, Paul. Lots of great stuff. And thanks to the product team for all the great work on this release. We definitely loved hearing the feedback. So keep it coming. Reach out to us, reach out to your account team, your customer success team. Any final word, Paul?
Stay tuned for the upcoming webinars where there's still much more to talk about 5.0. And of course, you're welcome to contact us in between and let us know what's of interest.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll speak to you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.